Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video, and in this video I'm doing another movie review, and it is my review for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And I have a lot to say about this movie, and I'm just so excited for it. Um, just a quick disclaimer, this video, I will have a section at the end that's dedicated just to spoilers. Right now it's almost 2 a.m. I just got home from the movie theater, and yeah, so I just watched this movie and Mufasa the Lion King back to back. Saw Mufasa first and then Sonic the Hedgehog. And I again have so much to say about this movie, so I'm just gonna go very quick with this, especially because I still gotta review Mufasa as well. And I'm tired and I'm not feeling so well, so I really just want to go to sleep. Um, but in regards to the movie, I just wanted to also say, if you haven't seen my Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 review, please watch that as well. Now, in regards to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, it's the best Sonic movie. Um, it's just the best Sonic movie. 10 minutes into the movie, I was already just in my mind thinking, yeah, this movie is just amazing. It's so good. So yeah, welcome to my review of Sonic 3. If you're wondering what I thought about it compared to Mufasa, I did like Sonic 3 more than Mufasa, but Mufasa was really good. Watch my review on that. But yeah, this movie was really good. This is the spoiler-free section. So again, I'll have a spoiler-filled section at the end, and I got a lot to say. So, first of all, the movie, I knew it was gonna be fun. As soon as we saw Shadow at the end of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I knew it was gonna be really, really cool and amazing. And what they did with this movie, it just completely was everything that I wanted and more as well. So one of the first things that I can say right away is just the pacing of the movie as a whole. Remember how I said in my review for Sonic 1, it was kind of like its own original story that the studio wanted to do with some callbacks for fans. And then Sonic 2 was half of that, but then half a thing just for the fans of Sonic. Kind of like as a thank you for supporting the movie, right? Yeah, Sonic 3 is just for the fans. It's like, all right, we gave you a movie and a half of things that we wanted to do as a studio, and a half of a movie that's just for the fans with callbacks and big references. But now we're gonna do you all a nice big favor and make a whole movie just for the callbacks, references, and the plot details and adaptations and everything. This is for the fans. And yeah, this movie is for the fans of Sonic, and anyone can enjoy it as well. But fans of Sonic, you're gonna love this movie a lot. It's so special in how it treats the source, in how it treats the story, the characters. Sonic and Eggman have a huge character development in this movie alone. I talked about how you kind of see their progression from the first movie to the second movie and how it's going to be on the third movie. But yeah, in this movie alone, they take that progression and really enhances it even more. So they further develop the characters more than I thought they were going to. They actually take the characters to some very interesting parts in the story of their development. I also really think that, as I said in my Sonic 2 review, it seems like Sonic 1 was like classic era Sonic, and then Sonic 2 was kind of like a teen Sonic, and that I was kind of seeing at Sonic 3 being more like modern Sonic with a little bit of hints from goofy movie Sonic, and that's definitely true. So in this movie, he's more in line with how he is in the Sonic Adventure games and Sonic X show and the other more mainline Sonic games. So it was really nice to see that, and kind of proves that I was right. And yeah, he still has that hyperness to him that movie Sonic does, but he's a lot more a lot more mature. Yeah, it does feel like it's modern day game Sonic with movie Sonic's hyperness added in. So he does take things seriously right now. And the movie had also a nice little message regarding Sonic too, and I thought that was really good. Sonic's development with Knuckles and Tails is pretty good, but they don't really do anything with it. It's really more focused on Sonic than Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, even though they are part of the story and they're very important to the story. I just mean the development between them is just the same as it was in the last movie at the end of the movie. It's just nice we get to see more of it now, which we didn't get to too much in the Knuckles TV show. Um, so that was really nice. The whole family dynamic thing was also really cool, especially to see, like Sonic's human adoptive family. I keep forgetting their names, but seeing them be part of the action because they want to support, their kids now. So I thought it was really nice and really heartwarming and really fun. In regards to Eggman, he has this whole arc in this movie as well, and this is, as I said in Sonic 2, this movie has Jim Carrey as Robotnik. It has him as full-on Eggman, but being Jim Carrey, but Jim Carrey as a full-out Robotnik. And there's some very cool things in the movie that they do with him that I'm going to be saving for the spoiler talk section. So yeah, it was just really cool what they do with him. So, and then in regards to Shadow, um, I have a lot to say about Shadow. Honestly, a lot of what I have to say about Shadow is not spoilers. So I think that they handled Shadow really, really good. I know that Keanu Reeves was kind of everyone's favorite choice to be Shadow. I don't really understand why. And I'm like, okay, it's nice that they listen to the fans and cast him as Shadow, but why? I don't think that the voice really fits Shadow. But then, and even when I was watching the trailers, I'm like, it's cool, but it doesn't fit Shadow very much. But then actually seeing the movie and, having Shadow talk throughout the movie, yeah, no, he's amazing. It fits so well. It's almost like that complaint that I had before with Ben Schwartz as Sonic's voice actor for the movies. That I prefer if it was more in line with how it is in the games, but I can't be too mad at it because it just works the way that his voice is. Same thing with Keanu Reeves as Shadow, but way better because there are so many moments in the movie where he does actually sound like Shadow from the games versus a different take on Shadow. And then there are a few moments where you're like, okay, that's just Keanu Reeves talking. But then there are moments where it's like, nope, that's Shadow talking now. So it works so good. So yeah, the voice acting that Keanu Reeves did for Shadow was amazing, and I do know that from watching interviews and things like that, that he really focused on getting this correct, and he does a fantastic job for sure. So he really did a really, really good job as Shadow. This part isn't really a spoiler. It's just everyone kept, like, Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba kept hyping up Knuckles and Shadow, but really they only have like 5 minutes total screen time together, and it's like, okay, why were you guys hyping up these two, having a show together, fighting each other? Like, it's literally in the start of the movie. That's mostly the extent of it. And yes, there's a couple of other fight scenes here and there, but Shadow and Knuckles don't really interact. So I didn't understand that marketing with the interviews, but it's cool. In regards to, well, I want to talk about the story, but because there's a lot to say about it. But there was another thing that I wanted to say in regards to Shadow. Can't remember right now. Again, it's 2 a.m. I'm sorry. Um, and in regards to what's it called, the story, there's a lot I gotta say about that story. So, as I said, 10 minutes into the movie starting, I was already like, okay, this is the best Sonic movie so far. This is amazing. And that's because it is. This story is so amazing. First, in terms of references, there's so much references here and there, but I do feel like there's less references this time. This one feels way more like an actual adaptation of Shadow's story. I don't even want to say of Sonic Adventure 2 because it's kind of not, but then it kind of is because that's also Shadow's story. Um, so it is and it isn't. A kind of an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2. Um, but yeah, so this one, I guess that the movie as a whole was a reference to a very important big arc in the Sonic video game series. But there were still many little references here and there. But I just think that the references this time was a lot more subtle and a lot fewer than the previous two movies, but still very present. And I also think that, there's a very cool reference that I want to talk about right now. But it's very, very cool. And it's one that people hated when the games originally did this particular thing. And now I'm sure that people are going to be loving that they did this reference. So it's really good in aspects to that. I also do think that the movie itself, in terms of its story, was very different because this movie is only 2 hours long, so it's less than Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And I was worried about that because I wanted this movie to be longer because Shadow was introduced into it. And yeah, thankfully, my complaints with the pacing that I had with Sonic 2 is fixed because even though this movie is shorter, it feels just as long because there's so much stuff that happens and probably more things that happen in this movie than in Sonic 2. Like, I would say 90 to 95% of this movie is just focused on the main plot, and like 5 to 10% is filler stuff. And those filler things are super quick and super small. Like, I think one of the longest filler things probably took like 3 minutes or less. So like, yeah, this movie is just straight out. The moment it opens up until the end of the movie, it's just going and going and going and going and mostly focused just on the main story. And then there's just so much into it. And you're like, oh, this is a lot. This is heavy. There's so much going on. And that was amazing because neither of the first two movies did that. And honestly, not a lot of movies in general, especially nowadays, really focus on just the main plot points. It kind of made me feel like, for example, the Boruto manga, the sequel to Naruto, how the Boruto manga just feels like it's highlights of the main plot points, but it still feels like a complete story, but you know that there's things missing. And so, and then you watch the Boruto anime where those things are fleshed out, and then there's more things that wasn't in the manga in it. So that's what this movie feels like. It feels like it's the manga for Boruto because it's straight out just the main plots, just the main plots going and going and going, and it's just so fast. But it doesn't feel rushed, and that's amazing that they were able to do that right because it's literally just almost like a adrenaline movie. Like it's just going and going and going and going. So it feels rushed in that sense because there's so much stuff that's happening, but it doesn't feel like they're being rushed to tell the story. That's what I mean by it doesn't feel rushed. It feels rushed in the sense they're throwing a lot at you throughout the whole movie, but it doesn't feel like they're doing that just to put in as much as they can in it. Especially given the runtime, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels fast because there's a very actual time sensitive thing, so they have to be going fast. Um, and that, yeah, in terms of threat details, that's all really I can say. Um, so it's just done so well. And then in terms of a couple of references as well, like I talked about this in my Sonic 2, there's a few references every now and then in this Sonic movie series where I'm like, why did you do it this way? I can't complain too much because it works. But then some things it's like, really, why did you do this way? I, it's fine. I can get behind it and accept this reference this way, but okay. And for me, the biggest issue with that in this movie is with the Chow Garden, which you see in the trailers and which I talked about in my Sonic 2 review. So, yes, that is probably the biggest reference in this movie where I'm like, why didn't you just include an actual Chow Garden? Um, but yeah, that's probably my one of my biggest complaints with the movie itself. I'll talk a little bit more about some complaints in a minute. But the last thing really that I want to say before I just give my final overall thoughts on the main story is, remember how I just said that the movie just goes and goes and goes because it's super fast paced? Um, yeah. Not only does it go, but you get whiplashed. It's literally like me thinking of Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Future Past, where he's holding on to Magneto's head because he's about to go super fast and just says, you know, just you might get a whiplash, and then Magneto's like, huh? And Quicksilver's like, whiplash. Yeah, this movie gives you whiplash because um the pacing is so much better. The pacing, like literally the moment that the movie starts, it's just going. There's very few moments of calmness in it. Um, but part of this is that this movie's tone is super serious. Like, very, very, very serious. They take these characters in a place that they haven't been in either of these previous two movies. Like, this movie is very serious. And it's done justice, especially if you know Shadow's story. They do it so much justice. Like I'll talk about that in just 1 minute. But yeah, they do the movie and the story justice. Now, in regards to what I'm trying to get at is you have so what I'm trying to say over here is that the movie itself is actually just very fast paced and it's super serious, and then out of nowhere it becomes so much funnier. Like, so yeah, the pacing is done so much better, but you get whiplashed because you're very focused in a very serious situation, and then and you've been in this very serious situation for like 5-10 minutes, and then you just see in that same serious situation something extremely cheesy, goofy, and funny, but then that serious situation is still happening, and then it goes into the more serious situation again, and then it switches scenes to something super comedic and funny. So you get whiplash because in one moment you're just like shocked at the serious things that's going on, and in the moment, and then in the next moment you're just like, wait, now it's something super funny. So you keep going back and forth between being in shock and then being laughing, and it works to the movie, but I guess it's also a little bit of a complaint because of that fact where it's like two huge tones contrasting with each other very dramatically, but I can't complain too much because it works. And I've said that so many times in the Sonic movie reviews. So yeah, I loved it. It was amazing. In terms of now the big actual thing is how did they handle Shadow's story? Like I mentioned at the start, with a lot of respect, and they handled it beautifully. And Shadow and Maria's relationship, you know, how can I say this without spoilers? Well, I mean, I know how I can say it, but there's one thing that I want to say that might be a little bit spoilery. I'll just leave that out. But without spoilers, Shadow and Maria's relationship is done so well, and it feels so realistic and believable from what we get to see. And it's just so good. So good. And yes, if you know the story, you know what happens. And they handle what happens with actual care. So they didn't really hide away from it too much. It's slightly altered, slightly, um, but the way that it's done is done with respect, and it still calls back to what actually happens. It's just again slightly altered, but still happens, just slightly altered. And if you're not sure exactly what I'm talking about, it's more or less what happens at the end of Shadow's story before he's asleep for 50 years. That's as much as I can say without spoilers. Um, so yeah, they do a really good job in developing Shadow and Maria's relationship overall. Now, in terms of just my thoughts overall on the movie, it was fantastic. It really is such an amazing story and done and told really well. Now, in regards to some complaints, I do have some of those, but I just wanted to say, like, a lot of people were talking so many things about this movie, like, oh, this character is going to be in the movie. Look, it looks like it's edited out, or this character is going to be in this movie, or they're going to do this or this, and then people kept hyping up about a specific character showing up in a post-credit scene. I didn't know which character that was. They just kept saying, like spoilers, like this person makes their appearance in Sonic 3 to set up Sonic 4. And when I heard those headlines, I didn't read them because I didn't want spoilers. In my mind, I thought, okay, it has to be this character, right? And I was right. So I'm gonna say that for the spoilers section, but I was so happy that I was right about who shows up in the post-credit scene. But then we have the main thing, which is a lot of people saying, oh, it's the movie trailers are edited, there's another character right here, things like that. And the character that they kept saying that would be present in the movie, like when I kept hearing that, I just kept thinking that doesn't make sense. I think that this movie would feel a little bit more bloated if this character is in, especially because if we're handling Sonic versus Shadow, I really think that the movie should be focused on Sonic versus Shadow and not adding in extra characters. So thankfully I was right. But because I kept seeing so many headlines for that, I kept thinking maybe this character is in this movie. So I was a little bit disappointed that this character wasn't. But it's also at the same time, I kind of figured that this character wasn't gonna be in it to begin with, because it just wouldn't make sense. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into that without spoilers, but I'll give more details into that during the spoiler section. So yeah, overall though, that was done really well. In terms of complaints though, so going back into my thoughts on it, really my complaints is just they could have easily just had a child garden, and they still didn't really explain a couple of, well, there's another complaint that I have, but that's more lore elements. But yeah, they didn't really explain like, I think that they could have talked more about Sonic's home world because they didn't. And they had a really good chance to do so with Shadow, like having Sonic tell us things about his home planet, like if he remembers any other hedgehogs there or anything like that. Um, so I thought that they could have taken that opportunity to really like tell us more about their planet. Um, and again, really that's really the only complaint that I have. Um, everything. Oh, right. I did talk a little bit about the whiplash, but again, I can't be mad about the whiplash because it works so good. But there is one thing that hyped me up so much um, towards the end of the movie. And I'll save that for the spoiler section. But yeah, I just wish that they would have done that a little bit differently. This thing that I'm talking about that hyped me up so much. Um, but it was still so cool. This particular thing near the end that I'm talking about. Um, in regards to oh, right. This isn't necessarily a complaint with the movie itself. It's also a very predictable thing. Even I thought, like, there's no way they're not gonna do this before the movies came out. So, or before the movie or trailers came out to it. But it is something that I think the trailer kind of spoils, and it's a very big thing. And I'm like, interesting. I guess they are gonna do this. I mean, they would be dumb not to. So I'm glad that it seems like they're going to, but I wasn't sure if they were going to. And then when I'm in AMC, they have a spoiler in one of the merchandise. That's the best way that I can say without spoilers. And I'm like, okay, thank you AMC for spoiling this. I mean, it was super predictable anyway, but just to see this, it's really cool. But still, thank you AMC for the spoiler. But yeah, it was in a merchandising, but I'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But overall, guys, this movie was just fantastic. It was amazing. It was so fun. It's the best Sonic movie, and it's so serious and so dark, but also so funny. Like, honestly, this was probably Jim Carrey's best performance as Eggman, and he's hilarious in this movie. Just like he was in the other movies, but in this movie, he's just straight out Jim Carrey. Like, Jim Carrey, Eggman, the perfect fusion of the two. So I thought it was done so well. Sonic grows up a lot, Knuckles and Tails are pretty cool, the family's amazing. Even Ozzy the dog has a few cool moments in this movie. By cool moments, I just mean cozy moments where you actually see subtitles of what he is saying, and it's adorable. And then you just have the heaviness with Shadow, and it's just done so well. So well. But yeah, that's my spoiler-free section of this review. In terms of my spoiler section, again, guys, if you don't want to hear the spoilers, come back to this video after you watch the movie. But yeah, if you are going to be signing off now, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the movie when you watch it. And with that said, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. But for those of you that want to know about the spoilers, again, final warning, it's time for the spoilers section. There isn't so much I have to say, it's just that now I can touch on a couple of other things a little bit more. So again, spoiler section is going to start in just a few seconds. If you don't want spoilers, please come back to the video after. If you don't care about spoilers or you've already seen the movie, please stick around. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoilers time. Yeah, everything with this movie is really cool. I love the fact that the movie just opens up with Shadow waking up. I love the fact that we actually get to see Maria's situation with her being killed. Again, that slight change from the games is that in the games she was shot, whereas in this one she was shot, but it's not just her. It was one guy shooting at everyone, at Maria, Robotnik, and Shadow. and so it's one soldier shooting at them, but the bullet hits like this tank, and this tank explodes, and that's what kills Maria. So again, it's still true to the source, but it's not the actual bullet that kills Maria in this movie. But still pays homage to it, so it works. Um, I thought that Jim Carrey playing him, Eggman and his grandpa was really well done. And I also didn't think about this when I saw the trailers, because in the trailers they show Eggman playing both roles. Sorry, Jim Carrey playing both roles, and in the trailer it straight out tells you that that's his grandpa. But if you watch the first two movies, Eggman says that he's an orphan. So I didn't actually think about that before, but thankfully, when I was seeing that scene after rewatching the two movies, I'm like, wait, isn't he an orphan that has no idea about anyone in his family? How does he actually know that that's his grandpa? Did he ever see photos of him or anything? So thankfully, they do address that particular issue, which was really cool. Um, and also, there was many moments, I forgot to say this in the spoiler free section, but there was many moments where you would expect them to go in a comedic way due to all the whiplash and how the previous two movies were, but then they actually sit on that heavy moment. So they don't just jump straight to a cheesy moment right away. You know, they let that heavy moment weigh on. For example, when the Colonel dies in this movie, helping Team Sonic get information, I thought, he's not dead. He's gonna make a joke, right? Are they actually gonna keep him dead? And then they do, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. And they actually handle that very realistically and seriously too. So this movie really handles these heavy moments very seriously. But then there's moments where you're like, okay, there's the Paramount Studios being a studio company trying to make more money by forcing some humor in some parts. Uh, but it works, so I can't complain too much. And then some jokes do actually make sense. For example, like when Sonic goes to get the Master Emerald, it's with freaking Wade, and he's using it as a hockey puck on top of the police station. But Sonic is literally on a murderous like mindset, and he just needs that. So it's like, that's what I mean by huge like contrast in the same scene. It's like Wade is there just being joking, and then Sonic is literally ready to kill someone. So it's like such a huge clash in tone, but it worked. Um, it worked. I wouldn't have had Wade playing hockey. I think he could have just been doing something else with the emerald, but it worked. It's fine. Um, and I also think that, they handled a lot of these things with Sonic's development really well. Particularly in him understanding that he has a choice to do something bad or not. And I think that was a really good message, because he kind of brings it up to Shadow as well. And I thought it was just really nice. And there's so many cool references to like Sonic Adventure 2. Sorry, and there's even a reference to Sonic Heroes, I think. And then there was a reference to Shadow the Hedgehog, which is like the intro for Shadow the Hedgehog, where Sonic is like shaking, trying to stand up, and then collapses. And then Shadow with a gun, or standing over him, they do that, and then they have him with the gun, and then they have him on the bike, and I was just so hyped up for that. Um, so yeah, they do a fantastic job. In terms of, I want to talk about the characters at the end of the movie, but in terms of, I'm trying to remember what else it was. The actual scenes that Shadow and Sonic are in, they're done really well. I think they really handled it so well and so beautifully done. especially when they're actually talking. Like there's this scene of Sonic and Shadow on the moon after they just stopped beating each other, um, and it's just so beautifully done. Now, I really want to get to the ending part, but there's still something else I wanted to say. If I remember it, I'll say it afterwards. But in terms of the ending, so when people kept hyping up a character making their appearance in the post-credit scene, I thought it was going to be Amy, and it was, and I was so excited that it was Amy. But she shows up in a scene where it's just like, what? What is going on? What just happened? Um, because, and I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Because people kept hyping up that this movie was gonna be very similar to Sonic 2, where they were gonna switch the villain. So the villain wasn't gonna be Knuckles, but then Eggman again, like what they did in Sonic 2. In this one, they were saying that it wasn't gonna be Shadow in the end. It was just it was gonna be Metal Sonic, and that's who they were hiding. They were hiding Shadow, uh, standing with Team Sonic to fight Metal Sonic. I did not think Metal Sonic was going to be in this movie. It made no sense to introduce him as like this big bad when we have all of the Shadow stuff to talk about. Um, but I was kind of hoping, like, hey, that's a really cool theory. If they do that, I'm super excited for it. So I kept kind of hoping that they would, so I was a bit disappointed that they didn't. But then again, so that's what I meant earlier, but at the same time, it's like it's predictable that they weren't gonna go with Metal Sonic in this movie. Um, until the end credit scene where we see freaking Metal Sonic. And so then I was happy because it's like, no way, he's actually in this movie. Not in the way that people were thinking he was going to be in the movie, but hey, he's in the movie in the post credit scene. How is he in this movie? And then you see like an army of um, Metal Sonics in the forest surrounding Sonic. And it's just like, what? And then that's when Amy appears and just blows them all up. Um, so that post credit scene was insane. So yeah, I'm glad that Metal Sonic is in it. So now I'm gonna rewatch the movie on Monday with my cousin. And now that I can get, now that I know the direction that they went with, which is the direction I thought they were gonna go with, um, instead of waiting to see if Metal Sonic will appear or not. Now that I know that he does appear just in the post-credit scene, I'll be able to enjoy the movie a lot more for sure. Just because again, I didn't think he was gonna be in there, but people kept like saying and hyping him up to be it through like the final villain, but he wasn't. He's just in the post-credit scene. But it worked out so cool, so I love that so much. Now the thing that I thought was super predictable was Super Shadow. There is no way that they were not gonna do Super Shadow. So, it was predictable. But I think that the trailer kind of ruined that when you see. I think in the trailer you see the yellow streak going up to the ship. I'm like, there's no way they're not gonna have Shadow in there as Super Shadow. But so that's the spoiler that AMC spoiled. It was a popcorn bucket as Super Shadow. Like there was, I think, one of Shadow and one of Super Shadow, and I'm like, why AMC? Why are you gonna be showing us Super Shadow in a popcorn bucket? Again, I wasn't too mad about it because it makes no sense that they wouldn't include Super Shadow. But then we get into that big thing that hyped me up so much. It's when Sonic and Shadow team up as Super Sonic and Super Shadow, and they start playing Live and Learn from Sonic Adventure 2. And as soon as I started hearing the song, I'm just like, wait, are they actually? And then you hear the vocals and the lyrics, and you're like, no way, they're actually doing the song. So I was just so hyped up. But then it cuts away from such an epic moment. It's only there for like 20 seconds, and they cut away from it. And then they go to the two Robotniks being cheesy, and it's like, Guys, major whiplash. Like, such an epic moment. Something very serious. And now we have two Robotniks literally spanking each other. I'm not joking. They were literally spanking each other. So, again, it's funny, but it's like, let me have that moment of live and learn in the movie format. But then thankfully, I can't be mad at it. That's the thing though, I can't be mad at it because right after that, we go back to Sonic and Shadow and the song starts playing again. I'm like, yes, thank you. And then they start destroying all of these things. They keep having this really cool moment together. They even do the freaking awesome pose where the two of them are like crossing each other, and they do it in slow motion. And then that's all with the song playing. But unfortunately, the song at that point they play it two more times, so they play the song three times total. Unfortunately, it's just a instrumental part. You only hear the vocals the first time that it plays it, and it's only like 10-20 seconds when they first play it. I do wish they would have just played the whole song and that it was less interrupted with the comedic stuff, and very focused on that particular fan service because it was done so well when we were actually seeing it. I do think that Live and Learn is a little overrated. I really like the instrumentals of it a lot more though, especially since I think that that was the main menu theme for Sonic Adventure 2. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, the instrumental for it is amazing. It's the vocals part or the lyrics where I think it's a little overrated. I've always actually preferred Escape to the City so much more in terms of vocals and singing along kind of tone. But in terms of instrumental, Live and Learn is so good, it's amazing. So I thank God so much that they did that. And that's one big thing I forgot to mention with my review on Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's when Sonic turned Super Sonic, they should have included a Crush 40 song, or a song from the Sonic games in there. So I'm really glad that they did now. So yeah, and I thought that that was just really really cool. And yeah, I also love that we get a Robotnik in his full final form, big belly, and he even has the actual Robotnik suit, like the actual outfit this time. And I'm like, yes, thank you. And it worked. It worked so well. I just really, really loved all of that. They really treated this movie with a lot of respect. Again, I feel like there's still something that I'm missing, that I really wanted to talk about, but they just really handled this movie so well. And I'm just so excited to watch this movie again. It is such an amazing movie. And I'm not exaggerating, 10 minutes into the movie, 10 minutes or less, honestly, right when Shadow actually breaks out of his glass, which is again at the very start of the movie, I already knew that this movie was better than the other two, and the other two was already fantastic to begin with. So, yeah, this was amazing. I loved it a lot. So much. Again, I do have very minor nitpicks with it, but I think that they did this movie really well. And really, this is a movie for the fans, 100%. It's got very little studio interference politics in there, like it's just straight out mostly for the fans. And it really, really was the best Sonic movie that they've made. And it was a fantastic adaptation of Shadow's story overall. So, yeah, thank you Sega for making this movie because this was amazing. But yeah, guys, with all that said, let me know what you think of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and if you think that this was the best Sonic movie so far or not. They also did confirm that Sonic 4 is coming out in 2027, so I'm super excited for that. That's really, really gonna be fun, especially since Amy is here too. So that's gonna be amazing. We're gonna have Sonic and Amy now. But really, these people keep coming from. Oh, and this is another thing as well. I did talk about this where it's they could have used the opportunity of Shadow coming to explain his backstory, but I think if I remember correctly, they do ask him, and he says he doesn't remember anything about his past, or at least he tells Maria that. But that's where Sonic could have said something to Shadow. That's what I mean about the planet or anything like that. So I really think that since now Amy is here, we need to really start getting some references to their planet because it's already been 3 movies and basically nothing about their planet is mentioned. So I think that that's really my biggest complaint with the series so far, because all complaints that I've had up till now has always been fixed with the next movies. But really, they need to be explaining things about the planet. They have to. In fact, in this movie alone, they're like, "Oh, hi, aliens," to Team Sonic, and Sonic's like, "Hey, we're from a different planet, not." And then he's like, "Okay, actually, no, wait, that does make us aliens." So like, they acknowledge this, and now we're getting more characters from it. Next thing you know, even freaking Big the Cat is gonna be in the movie series, and we won't know anything about where he comes from. Um, Wait, what if in Sonic 4 they do Chaos? That would be amazing. I mean, a little bit out of order because Chaos was before Shadow, but that would have been amazing. Anyway, sorry. Um, it will be very interesting to see what they do with Sonic 4, but we need to know more about this planet and how these people keep coming in whenever they want and how they keep finding Sonic, because it's been 3 movies now and they haven't really explained much of it. So, you know, it'll be interesting though. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, and if you watched Mufasa as well, what did you think? Which of the two did you prefer? Please watch my review on Sonic 1 and 2, and also on Mufasa the Lion King. With all that said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good night.